Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So it's extremely great pleasure for me to be here for the first time in Nunavadi Dham and in Hawaii after 66 years. When I was 4 years old, we lived here in Honolulu somewhere, in Navy housing. So, on the 29th we'll reach 70, so it's been 66 years.
Oh, so we have a birthday party to plan. That's awesome. So now you're in Srila Prabhupada's
That's the
army.
solar day. The
But-
lunar day comes on the 4th of August.
Well, you'll be here for the solar day.
Anyway, it's a very extremely great pleasure to be here at the lotus feet of Sri Sri Panchatattva Prabhu. Sri Sri Gornithai's lotus feet. Be here at the lotus feet of Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani. Be here at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And to be with all the devotees of Nunavati Dham. It's a great pleasure for me. So we'll try to get fast. We just came off a 21-hour flight. They arrived 5 hours after I left.
I'm going to open this so there's a little more.
I left at 3 o'clock in the morning of the 15th. I arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning of the 15th. And somehow it took 21 hours. So we haven't studied for the verse or anything, but anyway, we'll try to speak something for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 1, Chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home. Text number 27. Yaha
Yaha
Svakat
Svakat
Parato
Parato
Deha
Deha
Jata
Jata
Nirveda
Nirveda
Atmavan
Atmavan
Vriddhi
Vriddhi
Kritva
Kritva
Harim
Harim
Gehat
Gehat
Pravrajet
Pravrajet
Sa Narotamaha
Narotamaha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Vriddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Vriddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Pravrajet Sa Narotamaha
Pravrajet Sa Narotamaha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Vriddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Vriddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Pravrajet Sa Narotamaha
Pravrajet Sa Narotamaha Yasvakat Parato Veha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Vriddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Vriddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Pravrajet Sa Narotamaha
Pravrajet Sa Narotamaha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Kritva Harim
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Jasvakat Parato Beha
Yasakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Tatmavanu
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Pravrajet Sanarotamaha Yasakat Parato Veha Jata Nirveda Atmavan Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Yasvakat parato veha
Yasakat Parato Veha
Jata nirveda atmavan
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Yasakat Parato Veha Jata Nirveda Atmavan Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Yasvakat Parato Veha
Yasakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Riddhi Kritva Harim Geha
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Pravrajet Sanarotama
Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Yasute Parat Veha
Yasakat Parato Veha
Jata Nirveda Atmaram
Jata Nirveda Atmavan
Riddhi Krita Harim Gehat
Riddhi Kritva Harim Gehat
Parasetat Sanamaratana
Pravrajet Sanarotamaha
Anyone who
Swakat
by his own awakening
by his own awakening
Parataha
Parataha
or by hearing from another
or by hearing from another
Iha here in this world Jata becomes Nirveda indifferent to material attachment Atmavan consciousness Riddhi within the heart Kritva having been taken by Harim the personality of Godhead Geha from home Pravrajet goes away Saha he is Nara Uttama the first class human being Translation, please read. See, first we can read it. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Translation, please repeat. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada.
There are three classes of transcendentalists. Namely, one, the Dhira, or one who is not disturbed by being away from family association. Two, one in the renouncer of life, a sannyasi by frustrated sentiment. And three, a sincere devotee of the Lord who awakens God consciousness by hearing and chanting and leaves home depending completely on the personality of Godhead who resides in his heart. The idea is that the renouncer of life after a frustrated life of sentiment in the material world may be the stepping stone on the path of self-realization. But real perfection of the path of liberation is attained when one is practiced to depend fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who lives in everyone's heart as Paramatma. One may live in the darkest jungle alone, out of home, but a steadfast devotee knows very well that he is not alone. The Personality of Godhead is with him, and he can protect his sincere devotee in any awkward circumstance. One should therefore practice devotional service at home, hearing and chanting the holy name, quality, form, pastimes, entourage, etc., in the association of pure devotees. And this practice will help one awaken God consciousness in proportion to one's sincerity of purpose. One who desires material benefit by such devotional activities can never depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he sits in everyone's heart. Nor does the Lord give any direction to persons who worship him for material gain. Such materialistic devotees may be blessed by the Lord with material benefits, but they cannot reach the stage of first-class human being as a man. There are many examples of such sincere devotees in the history of the world, especially in India, and they are our guides on the path of self-realization. Mahaprabhu Vidura is one of such great devotees of the Lord. We should also have to follow in his footsteps for self-realization. Yasvakat parato veha jata nirveda atmava Riddhi kritva haringeha pravajena sanarotama. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this mature world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the Personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swapanandiyam Adadanastranalandai Vidamyache Puna Puna Srimad Rupa Padam Guru Visyam Janmajanmani Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Govinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here, the great soul Vidura is preaching to Dhritarashtra. And Prabhupada explained sadhu means to cut. Sadhu has to cut off her attachment for this false material enjoyment. So sometimes the sadhu may have to use very strong words. So I don't know if we've passed those verses yet or they're still to come, but eventually Vidura tells Dhritarashtra, you're just like a dog. To come.
We had
Already had
just a couple of verses back.
Just a couple of verses back. You try to destroy the whole Panda race in so many ways. Instead, they killed all of your sons, and now you're living on their kindness, just like a family dog. You know, we give some little scraps to the family dog. You tried to kill them, now you're taking charity for them. So he's using very strong words. And here he uses a very nice word, narottama. Nar we know means human being. And uttama, tama we know means the mode of ignorance. So uttama, above ignorance. Above this material means the best. Uttama. It's like we were singing now the song with Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So Narottama means the topmost human being. So the topmost human being here, Vidura describes either by himself or by hearing from others. Therefore this hearing process is most important. Most of us, we cannot become self-realized without hearing from great souls like Srila Prabhupada. somehow Prabhupada came to this horrible Western world. The complete opposite is what they think is Narada. One who's fully enjoying this material world. You know, he has girls falling at his feet. He's a beautiful Mercedes car. He's got a big house. This is what we think of as Narada. Prabhupada had to preach the completely opposite. You're fools and rascals. Actually, nobody really enjoys in this material world. I was in LA one time. And Prabhupada said, everyone in this material world is suffering and enjoying. He said, no, everybody is suffering. There's some suffering we call enjoyment and some suffering we call suffering. Because nobody actually really enjoys in this material world. Mainly they plan to enjoy. Just like the human being that I described, everybody aspires to that position. Wealth, beauty, and handsome. But everybody aspires for these things. But when they actually get them, they're not satisfied. Just like I remember one time in the old Boulder Temple, where a dear friend Dave also joined. I was the first devotee to join. I found my way to having the 50th anniversaries. They started the temple there in Janmashtami in 1969. We didn't even have a temple actually. We were just staying in a house way outside, 30 kilometers. What is that? 20 miles outside. Not to get back to miles again. 20 miles outside of Boulder, in a real log cabin. It was rented by 3 hippies. Somehow the devotees had taken over the whole place. We had great big Jagannath, great big Baladev, and for some reason it was only a little tiny Subhadra. Later some devotee, I can't remember his name, he served in Boulder after me. He carved a big deity of Subhadra. And they had taken over the living room became the temple room, and these poor hippies there was 2 rooms, the devotees were staying in one room and the hippies were staying in another room, so I can't remember. It was tight circumstances. But anyway, eventually we found the temple. And one time our dear temple president, Harinama, he took the temple car and he went on traveling Sankirtan. This is one of the first traveling Sankirtans. Because ordinarily we only did traveling Sankirtan if Prabhupada was coming to a city nearby, then we would, whatever city was on the way, we would stop and do Kirtan. Like Prabhupada came to LA, so we went to Taos, New Mexico, and Santa Fe, and so many places before we got to LA. And we did Harinam and distributed some books like that on the way. But nobody just did traveling Sankirtan, it was one of the first travel. So he took the temple car, so now we have to get down to our favorite chanting place was in Boulder. It was called The Hill. It's right outside the University of Boulder, Colorado. So in the old days, I don't know, I've lived here for more than 35 years. I lived in Renava 35 years. Before that, I lived in Colombia, South America. So I don't know, can you still hitchhike? Are people too afraid to pick anybody up now? But in the old days, you just had to stick out your thumb, and somebody would stop and say, where are you going? And you'd say, well, I'm going up to such spot, I'll drop you there. Or I'm going there, and you by chance you met somebody who's going to the So we decided to hitchhike down to our Sankirtan spot. But if there's a whole bunch of you, it's very difficult to get a ride, so we all split up. So I went out onto the main road, which was Broadway, and I stuck out my thumb, and some guy drove up. Now you know how old I am. This was the latest car, Ford Mustang. Now this is old ordinary thing. But it just come out, Ford Mustang. This guy came up with this Ford Mustang. you know, with, you know, classy racing stripes on the side, flames coming out from beneath the hood. In India we say bonnet. Coming out from the hood, flames painted, you know, chrome reverse wheels, slicks on the back, you know, big slicks on the back, you know, big chrome, perforated chrome thing over the, what do you call it, exhaust, you know. And as he stopped, you know, and I saw he had shag carpet. And he had something, now you know how old I am, had bucket seats. Nobody knows what bucket seats are. Because in the old days, you just had, in the front seat, you just had one seat straight across like the back seat. So when they put separate for the passenger, separate for the driver, they called it bucket seats for some dumb reason. He had bucket seats, he had a quadraphonic sound system. So Prabhupada told that if you want to preach to someone, first you have to praise them 50 times. Oh my dear sir, you're so handsome, you're so intelligent, you went to the best university, you have a beautiful house, you have a wonderful wife, you have obedient children, you know. You praise them 50 times. He said, then you get their attention. Because nobody talks to them like that, you know. They go to work and they just go, no, you son of a... So now you got his attention. So somebody finally recognized me. Wow. What do you want? He said, you just forget all this and hear about yourself. The Prabhupada said, first you praise him 50 times. So I thought he must be very proud of his car. You know. Prabhupada said, if you pet the gentleman's dog, then immediately you capture the gentleman's heart. You know. So I said, oh, this really nice car you got. And I sat down and told him up to the hill. He said, me too. He said, you got hop in. I said, this is a really nice car you got. Oh man, I can't wait to get rid of this car. I can't wait to get rid of this car. Hmm? I worked 2 jobs. I struggled like anything trying to get this car. I had to work 2 jobs. I had no time to even take my girlfriend to the movies. I could, you know. And then I finally got this car, and this is, you know, the beginning of the 70s when the Arabs realized they got all the oil and the Americans are exploiting them. They kicked them out and took over and jacked up the price, you know. And suddenly the price of petrol, what do you call it, gas? I'm from India, so we say petrol. The price of gas is something else, that's a CNG. So price of gas went way up, you know. He said, now it costs so much to run this car, I still don't have money to go take my girlfriend to the movies. I can't wait to get rid of this car. He was dreaming that when as soon as I get this car, then I'll be happy. As soon as he got it, he was more unhappy than he was with not having it. He said, I can't wait to get rid of this car. So we never actually enjoy in this world, we just think that we're going to enjoy it. When we actually get the thing we want, it's not what we expected. But it's all illusion, you know? Just like the girl she sees a very handsome guy, she thinks, oh, he's so handsome, he'd be so great to live with him, you know, for the rest of my life, you know. Then she marries him. Then Saturday comes, and you're just sitting and watching the football game all day, drinking beer, you know. You never take me there. Shut up! I'm watching the game. So we never really enjoy in this world. It's just we think we're going to enjoy it. But when we finally get to where we thought we would enjoy it, it's not what we expected. So here Vidura, he's trying to, at the fag end of Dhritarashtra's life, trying to show me the hopelessness. He tried his whole life to, because he couldn't become the king because he was blind. He wanted, Dhritarashtra wanted his sons to become the king illegally. And if he tried in so many plots to get rid of the Pandavas, so many intrigues are there. And at the end of life, he's just like a family dog, living with those people he tried to kill and killed all his sons. Pitiful position. So now Vidura with his knife Prabhu sadhu means knife. He's cutting off his material attachment. He says that he is a first-class man who depends solely on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who resides within his heart. And here Prabhu says, actually, one doesn't even have to, he's talking here about him leaving home, because that's the end of life. And even in the beginning and throughout the life, it says everyone, what does he say, Prabhu? One should therefore practice devotional service at home, hearing and chanting the holy name, quality, form, pastimes, entourage, etc., in association with pure devotees. And this practice will help one awaken God's consciousness into proportion to one's sincerity of the purpose. So he's saying we should remain at home and hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His form, His pastime, His qualities. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a section where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets with Ramananda Roy. Whole section is called Ramananda Samvad. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he presents himself before Ramananda Roy as an ignorant Mayavadi sannyasi. The Sarvabhauma, the greatest scholar of that time, he's become follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now he understands that this Ramananda Roy was a governor in, was this the name of that place? Somewhere in South India, Andhra Pradesh. Senior moment. Anyway, now he understands. He never appreciated Ramananda Roy before, but he knows Ramananda Roy is very expert in relishing rasa, Krishna consciousness. So when he heard that Mahaprabhu was going on South Indian tour, he told him, you must go see this fellow. He's very expert in Krishna consciousness. So Mahaprabhu presented himself as being unexpert. And please tell me, what is the goal of life and how to achieve it? And Ramananda Roy presented so many things. Even he cited scripture for everything that he said. Because the first thing he told Mahaprabhu, he quoted some verse from Bhagavatam that want us to follow the Varnashram Dharma. And he said that's external. The Varnashram Dharma is external. Because the real identity of the living entity, Jivaras were appointed to Krishna Das, for the eternal servant of Krishna. So this is external. And he presented so many things. He even presented our most favorite verse of Bhagavad Gita. Everybody knows that verse upside down, backwards. You may turn it inside out, we know that verse. Sarvanam Pritata Mahamikam Saranam Pradam Tvam Sarva Papisham Moksha Shivisa Mahasasha. Mahaprabhu said no. This is a big surprise. This is our favorite verse. Mahaprabhu said no. Go further. Then he quoted one verse from Lord Brahma's prayers in the 14th chapter of 10th canto. What is that now? Anyway, the verse says that one who hears about Krishna from the mouths of the pure devotees. For him, that Lord who's Ajita, he becomes Jita. You hear the tape, I was saying Jita, he becomes conquered by such a person. The Lord is Ajita. Prabhupada explains Ajita means unconquerable. You can hear in the tape Prabhupada say, anyone can conquer God? No, no one can conquer God. He's Ajita. But if we go on hearing I'm too tired. He goes on hearing from the pure devotees about the Lord. He conquers over that same Supreme Personality of Godhead who's Ajita. So this is the most important point in Krishna consciousness to hear. Then Mahaprabhu said yes. This is the how to achieve the goal of life. Because even Brahma Mahaprabhu rejected our favorite verse, Sarvanam Prijavami, to surrender to the Lord. But first of all, we have to know who is the Lord. If we go to India, everybody's telling that Durga is the supreme, Shiva is the supreme, so-and-so is supreme, Dattatreya is supreme. Everybody's got some supreme. Nobody knows who to surrender to. So first we have to hear from the pure devotees. Once we hear from the mouths of the pure devotees, then we can understand. So this is the most important. And in that lecture, Prabhupada says, even if you do not follow, if you just go on hearing from the pure devotees about the Lord, you will attain perfection. Of course, this is not to demean following in any means, by any means, but it is to glorify, and to glorify the power of hearing. The Prabhupada made this program, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every morning, so that gradually we become attracted to Krishna. By hearing, actually we can understand the falsity of this material world, the illusion of enjoyment. We can understand that it's just a place of birth, death, disease, and old age. So then we can develop our Krishna consciousness just by hearing. But the more we practice, the faster the realization will come. And with our short life, Shastra says that in Kali Yuga, we're supposed to live for 100 years. But nobody's making it anymore. Very rarely. At 45, we have our first heart attack. Then 3 or 4 years after that, Ram Nam Satya. We're off to the burning grounds. So we need to, as much as possible, practice. But the first thing is to hear. Mahaprabhu said yes, and then he said you go further, and then he goes, then that chapter becomes a chapter of teachings of Lord Chaitanya becomes super ecstatic as they go higher and higher up to the different rasas we can enjoy with Krishna. But it all starts from